This One's Wife. The Toxic End. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Amanda Platell writes in the Daily Mail, and it's an interesting article as it highlights something in particular in relation to the dynamic between this one's wife and Harry, and naturally it's explained by her narcissism, but it allows me another opportunity to demonstrate a particular facet of the dynamic between the two of them. Platell writes, it's been a tricky few weeks for Prince Harry. First, he quit his beloved African charity, Centre which helps children and young people following a race row. Then, just a few days ago, the prince announced he might set up a new charity to rival Centre claiming he is absolutely committed to continue the work he started. All rather humiliating, you might think. Harry was exonerated by an inquiry into the most serious claims that, with the charity's trustees, he had been guilty of bullying, misogynoir, and straightforward racism. Yet the sour smell of failure, mixed with arrogance, a privileged prince saving vulnerable children, then appearing to abandon them, still clings to him. The Centre row is, as we know, a complicated mess of claim and counterclaim, yet amid the tangle, one question is clear. Where was this one's wife? It's a valid question. Where was the support from his beloved wife as Harry stood accused? What an irony of committing some of the very sins she heaped on the royal family in that explosive Oprah interview in 2021. Why was this one's wife, a woman usually so determined to parade their perfect family life to 4 million followers, or bots, on Instagram, not out there in public to defend her beloved H? Why, for that matter, was there nothing but a passing reference to her husband when she celebrated, with a solo picture of herself, her 44th birthday last week? The Duchess merely thanked "my husband" in passing, without so much as naming him. Platell goes on to state, I have to agree with my respected colleague, Dr. Max Pemberton, a leading NHS psychiatrist, when he wrote this week, what's puzzling is that this one's wife has remained silent. No signs of support. He continued, while Harry is battling court cases and losing his beloved charity, this one's wife seems to be on a high with her As Ever brand, a Netflix show. Well, Dr. Max Pemberton might be puzzled about it, but you wouldn't be as a consequence of understanding my work. Harry is just simply an appliance for this one's wife. She shows false compassion towards him when it suits her for the purposes of controlling him and drawing fuel from him and managing a facade to the outside world. But she doesn't give a rat's ass about him. And when he's a liability, as he has been as of late, she doesn't make mention of him, doesn't interact with him. We saw this a couple of years ago, didn't we? About 2.5 years ago, and I pointed out at the time how she threw Harry under the bus in relation to Spare. We know that her sticky paws were all over the publication, and when Harry was getting criticised left, right and centre, the various disclosures that he made about bonking an older woman in the field and rubbing Elizabeth Arden cream into his todger and shooting lots of the Taliban, amongst other things, of smearing Camilla and his brother, the dog bowl fight, and so on and so forth, this one's wife stayed well out of the way. You might think it's a bit strange, isn't it, for this one's wife, who ordinarily eye-fucks cameras and ensures that she's at the centre of things. But her narcissism recognises when there are certain threats to control, and when they emanate from her husband, he's cut adrift. She has no sense of obligation. She has no sense of support in relation to Harry. He is there to serve her needs. She's not there to serve his. The only time she will do so is where she deems that it is something that she can get out of him, which means, naturally, early on, when she was wanting to ensnare him, she would be kind to him and would be supportive to him and show supposed compassion, but it's all transactional. Now, Harry is viewed as poisonous for her brand. He is seen as the problem. He is a difficulty. He's fucked up in relation to another charity, first African Parks, now Centre, and as a consequence of that, this one's wife doesn't want him anywhere near her. She needs to push him to one side. Of course, she'll wheel him out in the future when it suits her to do so. But when he's riding the currents of criticism in relation to his charities and other things, she's not there to support him because she has no emotional empathy, she has no sense of accountability, and she's too busy focused on what works for her, namely her Netflix show and As Ever. The fact is, she is not going to allow anything to get in the way of her plan to try and make money, residual benefit, from the show and also from her produce. Harry's misery, Harry's despair, Harry's upset, she doesn't care. He could be crying his eyes out, wailing in one of the many bathrooms at the Monty Shit Show mansion, and she's not interested. Platel concludes that this one's wife now understands Harry is bad for her brand of love and gorgeousness and homemade jam, and that she will allow nothing to get in the way of her plan to rake in millions from it. Platel then goes on to point out that he has helped to bring money into the household, for instance with Spare, and he was playing a part in the docuseries that aired back in December 2022. But that form of confessional, that income stream, has now dried up. Instead, it's this one's wife who's taken up the slack, launching herself as an influencer with her television show. It seems it's been rather successful. Few doubt that it's her appeal and social media following that has persuaded Netflix to give the Sussexes a new First Look multi-year contract to make shows, even at a considerably reduced rate. Yet in launching herself as the perfect homemaker, in her launch video for With Love, Meghan, there was little room for Harry. And of course he doesn't appear other than referenced as my husband in the new trailer that I've spoken about separately. Platel queries, is it Harry's decision to play such a low-key part? Has the dim-witted prince finally started to accept that he may be surplus to this one's wife's ambition, or to her money-making plans at least? Today, after all, he's an estranged member of the royal family, and ex-charity chief with no visible means of support, but an eye-wateringly expensive way of life to somehow maintain. With his star in decline as his wife ascends, it seems Harry, so far from being the breadwinner, is increasingly powerless, commercially toxic, even. In Channel 5 documentary Prince Harry, My Terrible Year, it was stated by Ailsa Anderson, late Queen's trusted press secretary, that Prince Harry should stop being the victim. He should start being the hero of his own piece, start writing his own script. People are just getting a bit tired of how Prince Harry thinks the world is against him and how awful his life is. She went on to explain that Harry's a very warm, engaging and kind person who's lost his way. I think trust is paramount in every walk of life. If you can't trust your family, who can you trust? Platel concludes by explaining, perhaps in the dark hours of the night, when Harry contemplates his future, he may be haunted by the way his wife appeared to drop her former best friend Jessica Mulrooney, or dumped her father, who incredibly Harry has never even met. Perhaps when he wakes up in the cold light of day, hapless Harry will recall what his brother tried to warn him of all those years ago, to be wary of a foreign TV actress he hardly even knew. As Daily Mail psychiatrist Dr. Pemberton puts it, in successful partnerships there is always one person to lift you up when you fall down. Without someone like this, life is infinitely harder and less fun. It would appear that this partnership is heading for a toxic end. And the fact is, you're never going to have a successful partnership with a narcissist, and therefore Harry's not going to have a successful partnership. And as he's finding out at the moment, he's deemed surplus to requirements. He's deemed as the toxic one in the relationship, and therefore she's distancing herself from him. Will this prove to be the wake-up call that Harry requires? I still think that it won't be. But the fact that she remains silent, the fact that she's not supported him when he's in trouble, the fact that she's not spoken out, is no surprise whatsoever to an expert in narcissism such as myself and your good selves who are well acquainted with my work. You know she doesn't care about Harry. You know she doesn't give a jot about his circumstances unless it impacts upon her. And therefore, because she doesn't care, she's not supporting him, and she wants to maintain distance because she wants to be the star of the show, and if he can't grip up and deliver similarly, then she doesn't want to know. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.